Hello, hi everyone. In this session, we are going to see how we can do mock implementation on top of the total file. It means that, example, if there is like a 4.js, in this file, whatever the functions are present, we are trying to mock those. And we are trying to give a default value on top of that. So example, if we see this documentation, here there is a file called 4.js. And here in test.js, we are trying to mock the total file, and then in place of the one which it is trying to return, in this, we are trying to give a default value, that is 42. And how we will say like we are trying to give the default values like mock implementation method we are trying to pass. And if we go to the code, here, this is the code which I try to take some of the scenarios. The scenarios are like in get users. It means that there is an open API call which I try to do, and this is the response we will try to get. So that is the one which I try to call here, and I gave this function name is like a get users. We are trying to get the users information, and on top of that, here we are trying to do an user authentication. It means that user is like um, uh, logged in or logged out. We'll try to do that, right? User authentication we will try to do. So here I am trying to do user authentication. For that, I try to put the code in utils file. So in utils, I'm trying to say like return true. I'm not trying to do any API call and all, nothing. But in by default, I'm trying to give here true. It means that all users information what I'm trying to get here, I'm saying that all are like in authenticated users. So this is where if condition is coming like user authentication, and then we are trying to do an API call to get the list of users, and then from there we are trying to get the ID of the user. This is what here the code gives information about. In this, what I'm trying to do, the testing is like, I'm trying to mock the utils file, whatever the user authentication we had written here. If we see users.js, here we are trying to call the utils, right? And it is returning true or false. If it false, then it will try to say error message. And if it is true, then it will try to call an API call and it will return this response. In test.js, I am trying to mock this function. It means that whatever the code is present, it means that API call and then user authentication, both these two I am trying to mock, and then I am trying to give some kind of a default values for this. And then I'm trying to test. It means that I'm trying to test this logic here. Okay. So in this case, I want to mock the utils file. So what I am trying to do first is like, first I will show here by doing an actual call. And means I am not trying to mock anything here. I'm trying to call the get users here with get users function, whatever the code it is there, means it is trying to call utils and it is trying to return true, means user is authorized, and then it is trying to call an API call, and then it is returning the response. This is the one which is happening here. This actual one by line code is trying to get triggered here. We are not trying to mock anything. In this case, if we can see here, I am trying to do npm run test now. Okay, so if we do npm run test and I give only, it means that only this test case has to be run. And then here we can see, if I go to users.js, it is trying to call user authentication. It means it is returning true. So it is not trying to return any error message. It means that it is true. So it is coming to this one, this call now. So if I go to user authentication, here I give console.log statement to know whether it is hitting this file, and then we are trying to be here or not. So here it is trying to console whatever we gave here. Okay, it means that from users.js file, we are trying to call the utils and then we are getting the response from there. And then we are trying to get here the API call, and from API call, we are trying to get the response. This is the one which is happening as of now. And now what we will try to do is like, we will try this because this is the actual API call is happening here, right? And then on top of that, we want to mock even the utils also, because in utils, there might be n number of functions in actual project, and there might be n number of API calls also might be happening. So, example, if we not required to do any of the actual API call, and if we want to test only the logic, in this case, what we can do is like, in test.js, we need to mock the utils.js. The main in this session, we are going to see how we will mock utils.js. On top of that, how we will see the default value. So I'm gonna comment this, and I had written some of the mocking already, and I will explain this code. So what I try to do here is like, I try to mock the utils file and then Axios call. So these two I try to mock. It means that whatever the utils functions we have, those will be mocked. On top of that, we can give here the default values. So here I try to give mock user authentication as a function name, and then I try to pass for this user authentication. I try to give the default value is like mock implementation is the just deep inbuilt method we are using mock implementation. And there we are trying to give here like a true or false. So here we try to pass true as the default value for user authentication. It means that when we call this function, it won't call utils.js. It will try to take this default one what we try to pass here, and then it will process the thing. And then I try to start the test case here. In this test case, what I'm trying to do is like, I am trying to say here what is the user's object information. This is the user's object information. And then this is the response I try to pass from. Here we are trying to get an API call response, right? This is the API call response I'm trying to give. And here we can see Axios.get of mock resolved value of response. I will come to this line. On top of that, first I will go to this line is like mock user authentication. This is where we are trying to call. If we try to call this mock user authentication, if we try to call mock user authentication, it means that it will try to give the default value, whatever we try to give here is like a true. So it is trying to return user authentication as a true. And then it is trying to go to the next line according to this code is like an API call. And to the API call also we are mocking here. And to this API call, whatever we mock, and we are saying mock resolved value as the response. Whatever the response we try to give here, that response only it is trying to send. So here, this one, this Axios call I try to mock already, and this is a get call. So we are, this is, if you see here, this is the get call. And then whatever the response we are trying to give, that we are giving like a mock resolved value. In mock resolved value is the default, it's not like a default, like just inbuilt thing. This is the method which is given by the JEST module itself. So we are using that mock resolved value of the JEST module, and then we are trying to pass the response here. And this is the function we are trying to call here. So it will try to use all of these mocked values, whatever we try to pass when we call the function, and we are trying to expect what should be the expected result, what we are expecting here. So this is how we will mock the actual file. On top of that file, whatever it is trying to return, we will try to give the default values. Thank you.